people are saying after that first exchange, you came out hot, big takedowns, big power shots early, right? And then they're
Yeah.
saying you got a little bit winded. From your perspective, were you winded?
Not when we were striking,
But when
but
you
when I
guys like
took him,
got up from that first exchange,
yeah, I wasn't. I mean, obviously I'm tired and I'm in there dealing with my muscles being feeling heavy, but I wasn't winded. Like my gas tank is what got me through all of that shit. I just felt heavy, dealing with like when we first started, everything felt crisp. Everything was like bam, bam. I'm returning back to, I'm breathing, everything is right. But when I touched him and he seemed to when that right hand touched him, I was like, if I touch him with this right hand clean enough, he ain't gonna be able to, it's gonna put him out. And so I just went crazy trying to get that. And obviously, a lot of people think I was in there tired. No, my body is still recovering. I didn't get over 174 pounds when I was in the cage. I was small. So, you cut all that weight, you taking your energy out. And I'm in there, I'm having to force myself to eat because I'm not hungry. I'm not this. And usually I am. And once you get in there and you start burning that energy and you realize I didn't put no energy back in, that's what I was dealing with. I didn't have nothing. And I pushed through that and made it look like I mean, obviously my muscles were, fatigued and, I got almost a 3% body fat when I'm down to weight, 2.5% body fat. And a lot of people don't understand what that is, or
somewhat
understand.
unhealthy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you got to you got to be smart because when I was in college doing this, my body would lock up and cramp and I couldn't
Hmm.
move. So, not putting that energy or the right things back in to even help with that, I was being smart. Like a lot of people don't see this stuff behind the scenes, and I do. And next fight, I tweak that and get that feeling. If I felt good in there, I'm just telling you, it was a good performance, but it could have been better, and that's all I can say about that.
Okay, I understand. So you just were having to manage energy stores
Yes,
because of a
energy.
little bit of a
Yes.
difficult weight cut.
Yeah, and no, it wasn't difficult. The way I'm small, I don't get over 178 pounds unless I'm lifting. And I don't lift. I haven't lifted since I was at Oklahoma State. And they used to force me to lift, I wouldn't lift. I like because all these muscles, I don't want to put more on it. I want to stay, loose, be flexible. So I focus on cardio, running, being able to breathe in certain situations and that's my main focus. But I focused so much on that, I wasn't, and on top of all the stress, it was hard for me to gain back weight, put that energy back in me. So, I mean, with wrestling, it taught me how to deal with that. You cut all this weight, you still got to wrestle, I don't care how bad you feel, you're going to push through that. You're going to do what you got to do, or they'll find somebody else. Well, with the fight game, it's a little different, but I just relate everything back to that. And I mean, they can take it however they want. It's this That was a big win for me. It
That's a
answered a
huge
lot
win.
of questions. It answered a lot of questions. And for me to get my first submission on somebody, I mean, he was out there threatening me as I'm beating him down. My ground and pound is crazy. And I know I was small. If I had like 10 more pounds on me, they would have been that much more devastating. You know what I mean? And, you know, all you can do is say what if, but all I know is I performed good, and I'm happy with what I did and it's only up from here.
Yeah, okay. So those are like the tweaks you want to make. And I was even thinking like if you're barely cutting weight, then why not drop down to 55? But it's like if you're already so low of body fat,
Yeah,
you kind of are in that
that's what it
situation where you
is.
have weight to gain, to
Yeah.
cut.
Yeah. So I've cut to 165 pounds when I was in college and I did a full workout and usually a full workout sweats everything on. I'm losing like 10, 11 pounds, I only lost a half a pound.
Damn.
and and I was that's when I knew, 155 is just obviously there's professionals out there that can help me or da 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 this and that, but I've done this for a long time, dealing with weight and wrestling and feeling like shit and still overcoming it, and from that aspect, and I feel like I'm professional there. I just don't think my body can make it.
Mm. Okay, I got you. That makes sense,
So it would
honestly.
be nice if they, you know,
Had a
that big ass gap
165
from
or something.
155 to 170, you know, 165, throw 165 in there and 170. I mean, I know it would fuck up the whole thing or what, but make it the weight 174. And you know, so you got that big ass. That's why I didn't wrestle in college because it's such a big gap, just like that. So I would have to cut down to like 150 something to wrestle on the world team. And the next weight up is like 186 pounds. You know, I can't get that
Right.
big, you
Because
know,
there's
or
fewer weight classes in
yeah,
USA wrestling, yeah.
you know. So it's like that threshold right in there, 166, 165-ish. Like if that was a weight, I don't feel like nobody in the world would be able to compete with me, you know, because that would be I would be big for the weight, you know, comfortable, not doing too much killing on myself. And but you know, 170 is good, you know.
Definitely. You can gain a little bit of weight. I think you'll see some improvements off that. But yeah, Kevin Lee and stuff like that, he was a big advocate because he was one of those guys in the middle too. Remember, he's
Yeah,
pretty lean himself.
for
And he
sure.
fought at 170, but he was too big to go down to 55. So
Yeah.
makes sense, honestly. Dana hates it though. Dana doesn't want the 65, probably because he knows in the back of his mind he's got to move 170 up to 174. Now
Yeah,
that
but
you just
then
kind
you
of
get these
explained that.
little guys like look, listen to this. You so you got 125, right? The next weight up is 135. That's a 10-pound difference.
It's
But then when you
only,
get to
yeah.
155, it's like, all right, the next weight is 170. Like, why are we playing that game there? Or, you know, like
Then
it
185
just,
is the next one up too. It's
you know,
15 both
so it's just
ways.
like, you know, it is what it is, you know, ain't no excuses. This is what it is. And so that's what I got to build my body around and my profession around to become the world champ.